So Cece decided to, she does not need assistance to get on these couches because this is what her new project is she brought her couch to our big couch and is sliding down it. A lovely day in the life of Cece. Mommy's got her black label on. Mama's not playing. Cece, Bella, honey, stop pushing your sister right now or you're going to bed. Bella. I'll get it from her. Stop, I'll get it from her. She's off.
Welcome to Dark Matters, True Crime, the channel where every case drags you deeper into the unknown. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we explore the darkest corners of the human mind.
When investigators began the final examination, the room was silent. Everyone present understood that this moment would reveal answers no one ever wanted to hear. The tragedy involving Bella Watts and Celeste Watts had already shocked the world. But the forensic findings would bring a deeper, more heartbreaking understanding of what had happened. This was not just about science. It was about two young lives. Two sisters who had trusted the adults around them. Two children who had dreams, laughter, and a future that should have been full of happiness. Forensic experts approached their work carefully and respectfully. Their responsibility was to examine evidence and determine facts. Facts that could help investigators understand the timeline of events and ensure justice for the victims. Every detail mattered. Every observation carried emotional weight. As the examination began, professionals focused on answering one key question. What exactly happened in the final moments before the tragedy? The findings would later confirm the sequence of events and provide clarity about the conditions surrounding the deaths. These conclusions were not shared lightly. They were delivered with seriousness and compassion, recognizing that behind every report was a grieving family and a community searching for answers. What made this moment especially heartbreaking was the realization that Bella and Celeste were completely innocent. They relied on the adults in their lives for safety and protection. They trusted the people who cared for them. That trust makes the loss even more painful to understand. The forensic examination was not only about determining facts, it was about honoring their memory by telling the truth. For many investigators, this case stayed with them long after their work was finished. It reminded them that behind every case file are real human lives. Behind every report are families forever changed by loss. And behind every conclusion is a responsibility to ensure justice is served. As this story begins, we will carefully explore what the forensic examination revealed, step by step, while remembering the love, innocence, and lives of Bella and Celeste. Stay with us for the next chapter where we look at how investigators carefully documented the evidence and began piecing together the timeline of events. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime for more powerful and heartbreaking true crime stories. As the forensic team continued their careful work, every detail inside the examination room carried deep emotional weight. This was not just another case. It was about understanding the final moments in the lives of Bella Watts and Celeste Watts, two young sisters whose story had touched hearts around the world. The purpose of the examination was clear. Investigators needed to establish facts. Not guesses, not assumptions, but evidence that could help explain what had happened. Forensic science relies on careful observation, documentation, and analysis. Every step is methodical, designed to ensure that the truth is recorded accurately and respectfully. What made this moment especially difficult was the silence. There were no voices, no laughter, no movement. Only the quiet work of professionals determined to honor the victims by telling their story through evidence. Each finding became part of a larger picture, helping investigators understand the timeline and circumstances surrounding the tragedy. One of the most important aspects of forensic work is documentation. Specialists recorded observations, measurements, and environmental details. They examined clothing, personal items, and physical conditions to determine how events unfolded. This process is not rushed. It requires patience, precision, and emotional strength, because the information gathered will later be used in court to ensure justice is served. For many of the professionals involved, the hardest part was remembering that these were children. But Bella and Celeste were known for their bright personalities and strong bond as sisters.
Aw, kisses. Aw, she's hugging you, Bella. Oh, that's so sweet. She's giving you kisses. Aw, that's so Oh, you want her to rub your back? Ah, she's rubbing your back. She's got you, Bella.
No, leave her clothes on. Leave her clothes on. Honest.
Lie down, honey. She's coming to get you. Just
Come here.
Chris. I don't want a video of you. Uh-oh.
They shared toys, laughter, and bedtime routines. They depended on the adults in their lives for protection and safety. That innocence made the investigation deeply personal for those working on the case. The findings from the forensic examination would later help confirm the sequence of events and support the legal case against Chris Watts. These conclusions were not only scientific, they were part of the process of accountability and justice. For the investigators, this work was about more than evidence. It was about giving a voice to two young lives that could no longer speak for themselves.
Hey, Bella, come here. Come here.
Just try.
Bella, say hi.
Just loading.
Are you ready to sing Holly Jolly Christmas? Yeah? Are you going to sing Holly Jolly? Cece, are you going to sing Holly Jolly? Sing Holly. You want to sing Holly Jolly? What song are you going to sing, Cece? Keeping them still in auditoriums like pulling teeth.
She's gonna sing, push mom.
Is she?
I got
Cece, are you going to sing Holly Jolly Christmas?
that one. Handy Minnie.
We're early, and it's craziness.
Daddy.
It was about ensuring that the truth was preserved, no matter how painful it might be to hear. As investigators continued their work, the next critical step was to reconstruct the timeline. A careful process of placing events in order to understand what happened during the final hours of Bella Watts and Celeste Watts. This stage required patience, coordination, and attention to detail. Every piece of information had to fit together like parts of a puzzle. The timeline began with ordinary routines. The sisters had followed the same patterns many families recognize: waking up, spending time together, and relying on the comfort of familiar surroundings. These daily habits helped investigators establish a starting point. From there, professionals examined records, observations, and witness statements to determine how the day progressed. One of the most powerful tools in forensic work is consistency. Investigators compare different sources of information to confirm accuracy. When multiple details match, confidence in the timeline grows stronger. This method helps ensure that conclusions are based on verified facts rather than assumptions. In cases involving children, this careful approach is especially important because it protects the integrity of the investigation. As the timeline became clearer, a heartbreaking realization emerged. The final hours of the sisters' lives were marked by trust. They depended completely on the adults responsible for their safety. That dependence is what makes tragedies involving children so difficult to understand. It reminds investigators and families alike of the responsibility adults carry to protect those who cannot protect themselves.
Hang on, guys.
Ready? You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on.
Uh-oh. Peter, he's got to get on too. Get on, Peter.
Mommy.
Coral, sit up, honey. Your poor neck.
She's pushing on my head. She's pushing on my head the entire time.
Worn out, Bella.
She's pushing on my head. She's pushing me back down.
He's getting tired.
Yeah, that's getting kind of horrible.
One more time.
This is the one time they actually stay on there. And Whew. Ready for that? Go.
Hang on, guys.
Throughout this process, the focus remained on truth and accountability. The findings would later support the legal case against Chris Watts, ensuring that the events of that day were documented with precision. Forensic timelines are not just technical records. They are narratives built from evidence, helping courts and communities understand what happened and why justice must be upheld. For the professionals involved, this stage of the investigation carried deep emotional weight. They were not simply analyzing data. They were preserving the story of two young sisters whose lives ended far too soon. Each confirmed detail became a step toward closure for grieving families and a reminder of the importance of accountability. By the time investigators reached this stage, the focus turned to confirming the facts through science. Our forensic specialists rely on careful testing and analysis to make sure every conclusion is supported by evidence. In the case of Bella Watts and Celeste Watts, this process was especially important because it would help establish exactly what happened and ensure the truth could never be denied. Every step was handled with precision and respect. Forensic science is not about speculation. It is about measurable facts, observations that can be documented, reviewed, and explained clearly in court. Specialists examined environmental conditions, physical evidence, and timelines to verify the sequence of events. Each finding became part of a larger framework that supported the investigation. One of the most powerful aspects of forensic work is its ability to remove uncertainty. When evidence is analyzed carefully, it provides clarity. It answers questions that might otherwise remain unresolved. In this case, the scientific findings confirmed key details about the timeline and circumstances surrounding the tragedy. These confirmations helped investigators move forward with confidence, knowing their conclusions were based on reliable data. What made this process emotionally difficult was the age of the victims. Bella and Celeste were young children who relied on the adults in their lives for protection. Their innocence made the work deeply personal for many professionals involved. Even experienced investigators found themselves reflecting on the responsibility society has to safeguard children and prevent harm whenever possible. The scientific results also strengthened the legal case against Chris Watts. In court, evidence must be clear and dependable. Forensic findings provided that certainty. They helped prosecutors present a detailed and accurate account of what happened, ensuring that justice would be based on facts rather than emotion alone. This step is essential in every serious investigation, especially one that has affected so many families and communities. For many people following the case, the forensic confirmation brought a mix of emotions. There was sadness for the lives that were lost. There was relief that the truth had been established. And there was determination to remember the victims and honor their memory. When the forensic work was complete, investigators faced one of the most important steps in the entire case, presenting their findings clearly and carefully in court. This moment was not just about science or documentation. It was about giving a voice to Bella Watts and Celeste Watts, two young sisters whose lives had been taken far too soon. The courtroom atmosphere was heavy with emotion. Family members, legal professionals, and observers sat quietly, listening as experts explained their conclusions. Every statement carried weight because it represented months of careful work and analysis. Forensic specialists described how they examined evidence, established timelines, and confirmed facts that supported the investigation. Their role was not to create drama. Their role was to explain the truth. In cases involving children, clarity is essential. Courts rely on precise information to make fair and responsible decisions. That is why investigators used simple, direct language to describe their findings. They explained how the evidence fit together and how each detail contributed to understanding the events that led to the tragedy. As the presentation continued, one message became clear. The forensic evidence left little room for doubt. It confirmed the sequence of events and strengthened the legal case against Chris Watts. These conclusions helped ensure accountability and provided the foundation for the final judgment. For the families affected by the loss, this moment was deeply painful. Hearing the details in a formal setting forced them to confront the reality of what had happened. Yet it also brought a sense of closure. The truth was no longer hidden. It had been documented, verified, and shared openly in court. That transparency is a vital part of justice, especially in cases that have touched so many lives. Observers later said that the presentation of the forensic findings changed how they understood the case. It reminded them that justice depends on evidence, not speculation, not rumor, but carefully examined facts. It also reinforced the importance of honoring the memory of the victims by ensuring their story is told accurately. For many, the courtroom became a place where grief and accountability met. After the forensic findings were presented in court, the case moved into one of its most significant stages: sentencing. This was the moment when the legal system would decide the consequences for the crimes confirmed through evidence.
It's made by the victims in this case. The court's going to find that the plea agreement is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. I want to acknowledge the Rusick family as well as the Watts family that showing mercy on Mr. Watts is understood, and I respect that decision to request that the district attorney not seek the death penalty in this case. And so the court is going to accept this plea bargain under the circumstances. Words that come to mind when I hear the evidence in this case are a senseless crime and the viciousness of the crime. And equally aggravating in this court's determination is the despicable act of disposing of the bodies in the manner in which they were done in this case. I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could.
For the families of Bella Watts and Celeste Watts, this moment carried deep emotional weight. It marked the point where justice would be formally delivered. But the courtroom was quiet as the judge prepared to speak. Everyone present understood the seriousness of the decision. Months of investigation, forensic examination, and legal preparation had led to this moment. The evidence had been reviewed carefully, and the facts were clear. The responsibility now rested with the court to determine a sentence that reflected the severity of the crimes. When the sentence was announced, it was one of the strongest penalties allowed by law.
A centimeter and a half.
Multiple life terms without the possibility of parole meant that Chris Watts would remain in prison for the rest of his life.
Before she died.
The court's decision emphasized accountability and protection for the community. It also demonstrated how seriously the justice system treats crimes involving children. For the families and loved ones, the announcement brought mixed emotions. There was relief that justice had been served. There was sorrow for the lives that could never be restored. and there was a sense of finality, the recognition that the legal process had reached its conclusion. Experts often explain that sentencing is not only about punishment, it is also about acknowledging the harm caused and affirming the value of the lives that were lost. In this case, the court's decision reinforced the principle that every child deserves safety and protection. The sentence became a statement about responsibility and the importance of safeguarding families. Outside the courtroom, communities reflected on what the case had revealed. They saw how forensic science, careful investigation, and legal procedures work together to deliver justice. They also recognized the lasting impact of the tragedy, which continued to remind people of the importance of awareness and compassion. For many observers, the sentencing marked the beginning of a new chapter, one focused on remembrance rather than investigation. Stay with us for the next chapter, where we explore how the forensic findings continue to shape public understanding of the case and why their impact still matters today. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime for more powerful and heartbreaking true crime stories. Long after the courtroom emptied and the legal process ended, the forensic findings continued to stay in the minds of the investigators who worked on the case. For many of them, the examination of
the inexplicable nature of what he did is you can't understand it. Didn't when he pled guilty on November 6th. I never did during the course of any of this investigation, any of the interviews with him. I think that he shed a tear for himself. I think justice was served in the best way we can in Colorado right now. I think if somebody came up and put their hands around somebody's neck, the first thing a victim's going to do is grab onto the hands or the arms and try to pull them away, or scrape or claw or bite or whatever to try and get that person's hands off of their throat. There wasn't anything like that in Shanann. And his statement to investigators was, they were very clearly, obviously dead, so I decided to dispose of their bodies. You didn't call 911. You didn't try CPR. You didn't even check on them to see if they were breathing. When you hear that, you're thinking, this just...
Bella Watts and Celeste Watts was not just another assignment. It was a deeply emotional experience that left a lasting impact on their hearts and careers. These professionals are trained to remain focused and objective. They rely on science, procedures, and careful documentation to do their work. But cases involving children are different. They remind investigators of the fragility of life and the responsibility adults have to protect the youngest members of society.
Boy, play, girls, win.
You're so smart.
My turn.
What's your say, Cece? Diva,
Diva,
princess,
princess,
mini boss,
Nicholas,
rock star,
star,
multitask.
dinosaur.
Good job. Go, Cece. Go, Bella. Go, girls. Blow on it. She wants you to blow on it. Shake your booty, Cece. Go, Cece. What?
Drop it like it's hot.
Go, Cece.
Many of the people involved later said that this case strengthened their commitment to justice and child safety. The findings also changed how the public understood the tragedy. Before the forensic examination, many people only knew the headlines. They heard about the loss but did not fully understand the timeline or the details that led to the final outcome. Once the evidence was presented, the picture became clearer. And the scientific results confirmed what had happened and helped ensure that accountability could never be questioned. For the families and communities affected by the tragedy involving Chris Watts, the forensic findings became part of the healing process. They provided certainty, they provided truth, and they provided a foundation for remembrance. Even years later, investigators continue to speak about the case as a reminder of why their work matters. Every examination, every report, and every detail they document has a purpose: to protect lives and ensure justice for those who can no longer speak for themselves. The legacy of the forensic findings is not only about evidence. It is about honoring the memory of two young sisters and making sure their story is never forgotten. When the final examination concluded, The room fell into a quiet stillness. The work of the forensic team had provided answers, but those answers came with a heavy emotional cost. The findings about Bella Watts and Celeste Watts would forever remain part of the official record. A record that ensured the truth could never be forgotten. For the professionals involved, the case became more than just evidence and reports. It became a reminder of responsibility. They understood that every detail they documented carried meaning. Their careful work helped confirm the timeline, support the legal process, and ensure justice was delivered. But beyond the science, there was a human story. The story of two sisters whose lives were filled with laughter, love, and innocence. That is what makes this case so heartbreaking. Bella and Celeste trusted the adults in their lives completely. They relied on protection, guidance, and care. Their innocence reminds us of how important it is to create safe environments for children and to recognize signs of stress or conflict before situations escalate. The sentencing of Chris Watts closed the legal chapter of the case, but it did not erase the memories. Families, investigators, and communities continue to remember the lives that were lost. They hold on to the lessons learned. Lessons about accountability, awareness, and the value of every moment shared with loved ones. For many people, the final examination represents closure. Not closure in the sense of forgetting, but closure in knowing that the truth was established and justice was carried out. It allows families to focus on remembrance and healing, even while the pain of loss remains. As this story comes to an end, one message stands above all others. Cherish the people you love. Protect the children in your care. And never take a single day for granted. Stay with us for more heartfelt and informative true crime stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime so you never miss the next powerful case.